issue of the venture capital program that the government is undertaking through the Development Bank of Jamaica. Now, when Marlene spoke of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Jamaica Stock Exchange is what you'd call, what people look for an exit once they have invested either through venture capital or private equity in a company. Now, there's been every discussion that we've had or over the years, you hear a lot of discussions that what Jamaica needs is venture capital, and what a lot of entrepreneurs need is venture capital, and so on. But what we recognize is that one of the things that has stopped us from being able to develop a venture capital market has been the fact that we don't have the environment. The environment needs to be actually nurtured and established. In the last 20 years, we have had one venture capital fund, and that was the Jamaica Venture Fund. And everybody knows the big success story out of the Jamaica Venture Fund is Jamaica Money Market Brokers. Now, Jamaica Money Market Brokers, when that started in a room probably 3/4 of the size of this room. I knew Joan Duncan. I worked with Joan Duncan just before she started JMB. So I knew the size room that they started it. And when you look on JMB now, JMB is international. And JMB is a product of Jamaica Venture Fund. Now, what we find is that what Joan was able to do is a lot of entrepreneurs and SMEs are not willing to do. One of the things that you have to be able to do as an investee company is you have to know that if you're inviting an equity investor into your business, the equity investor is not like the bank, which, once you're able to give them the collateral and make your monthly payments and give them a periodic report, then they're fine with you. An equity investor, and particularly a venture capital investor, will need to be sitting on your board, will need to have a say in everything you do, how your management, your operations, your corporate governance has to be at a totally different level from what a lot of SMEs now have. So, to give you an example, there was a study done some years ago, I think in 2006, by the Mona School of Business, which showed that 25% of Jamaican companies, only about 25%, have a board of directors. And of that 25%, 30% met maybe annually or none at all. So if we're talking about, you can do the math. The fact of the matter is corporate governance and what it takes to invite or enter a venture capitalist to be looking to invest in a business. A lot of our companies do not have that culture. So a major aspect of the program that we're undertaking at the Development Bank will have to address that whole issue of that whole change management in terms of the culture, the attitude towards shareholders, the attitude towards corporate governance. So that's a major component in the ecosystem development that we're going to be undertaking. When Marlene spoke about exiting through the stock exchange, one of the first company that listed on the junior stock exchange was Access Finance. Now, a lot of people might not know that before Access Finance came to the junior market, Access Finance actually, they obtained financing from private equity investors. A few investors, including Mayberry, were the main investors. Nobody knew of Access at the time, but Mayberry, based on the business model that Access was able to present, decided to take a position in Access and worked with them for a couple of years to be able to bring them to the point where they could actually exit through the stock exchange. So when we're talking about venture capital or private equity, we're not talking about something that's esoteric, something that is totally strange. What it is a stage before before an investor might, a company might decide to come to the market. They're raising capital from private individuals, from private funds, such as the ones that that Mariam works with. So it's not something that is strange. What it will take, however, as I mentioned, is a culture change. The reason why we have not had a culture change, among other things. Some of the other things include a relook at our legal and regulatory framework. When Jamaica Venture Fund set up that fund, a number of financial institutions actually invested along with the Jamaica Venture Fund to provide the capital. What we've found, however, is that over the last 20 years, with the high interest rates, the focus on government people, basically there has not been a lot of incentives for private investors to want to take risk. If you can invest at a high rate with a kind of inverted yield curve that we have had, where low risk gives you a high return, then you're not going to go for high risk with the possibility of loss. So the fact of the matter is that our environment is, now that interest rates have changed, the interest rate structure has changed, where you want low risk, you're going to get a low return. If you want a higher risk, you're going to get a higher return. This is the kind of environment that has been able to, the junior stock exchange has been able to be spawned in. The junior stock exchange was an idea. I actually sat on the council of the stock exchange some years ago. And Marlene will tell you, we spoke of something like the junior stock exchange way back when, but it was actually impossible to launch in the environment, the high interest rate environment. So where we are now, the legal and regulatory framework, the interest rates, there has to be some modification in the legal and regulatory framework. The Securities Act, the Financial Services Commission, there are some restrictions presently. So any funds that have been offered in the Jamaican market have actually been set up offshore. So if we're looking to set up venture funds in Jamaica, we're going to have some legislative changes. As I mentioned before, our SMEs need to be investment ready. Currently, most SMEs will, I get the statistics from the stock exchange persons that for every one company that has been listed, and have what, 13, 12, 14? For every one, there might be 5 more. We're talking about possibility of 70 companies that could potentially list, but they need to come up the curve. They need to come up the curve. They need private capital, private equity. They need venture capital.